So, in this video, I will give you empirical evidence to know that does God exist? One of the 5 topics discussed in Bhagavad Gita is God. This lesson is all about God. Does God exist? Those who do agree that He exists also say that God is great. How great is He? That is something that very few people know. God is infinite, everybody knows. What is the measure of this infiniteness? Hardly one knows. In this lesson, we will provide some empirical evidences to establish the existence of God. Then the authority of Holy Scriptures and Holy Seers will be presented, further substantiating the existence of God. In the process of understanding the concept of infinity, we will establish how Krishna's concept of God or infiniteness is absolute, and will be dealt in this lesson based on the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So, everybody wants to know the subject matter God, but many, they do not endeavor enough to reach the right source to learn it. This is the problem. And following the Parampara system of Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya, I will bring out the core concept of God, Ananta. Everybody understands Ananta, but nobody understands Ananta is inconceivable, isn't it? What is the meaning of Ananta? Infinite. Infinite, nobody has understood. And I am going to talk about this in this lesson. Let's start with, does God exist? Whether God exists or not is a fundamental question facing mankind today. What is accepted commonly as a fact in bygone ages is now being increasingly questioned. In the following presentation, we will discuss some of the logical reasons proving the existence of God. More and more people want a scientific answer to the existence of God. As I have told you, Ananta or infinite is naturally inconceivable. So that which is naturally inconceivable, that subject matter should be approached in a completely different manner. We are habituated to the laws of finites. Anything finite is very easy to approach. But whenever laws of infinite comes, only God is in full authority, full control. So we need to be very cautious when we deal with a subject matter that deals with infinity, that which is inconceivable. So I will try my endeavor to put across the message that God exists in an empirical way first. There are many empirical evidences to establish that God does exist. First is, there is a perfect design. All across us, we can see a perfect design. I'll start with a story. The story of a Newton solar system model. Once a friend of Sir Isaac Newton came over for a dinner. His friend was an atheist while he was a monotheist, raised a Christian but denounced the Trinity as it opposed one God. They often got into debates. While Newton was preparing dinner, his friend noticed an extraordinary model of the solar system Isaac had in his library bookshelf. His friend was amazed and asked him who made it and where it come from. Sir Isaac Newton responded coyly that nobody had made it and that it just happened to appear. His friend, confused and irritated, retorted, "You must think I am a fool. Of course, somebody made it and he's a genius." Newton then spoke to his friend in a polite yet firm way. "This thing is but a puny imitation of a much grander system whose laws you know, and I am not able to convince you that this mere toy is without a designer or a maker. Yet, you profess to believe the great original solar system from which the design is taken has come into being without either designer or maker. Now tell me, by what sort of reasoning do you reach such an incongruous conclusion? So this story is a very eye-opener for everyone who wants to believe in God. When Newton made the toy model of the solar system, his friend, an atheist friend, is not ready to accept that this toy model has not been designed. This toy model has come by itself. He doesn't want to accept this argument. He says somebody has made it. Okay? Whereas he is ready to believe that the actual real solar system has happened by chance. Somehow it has happened. So this is the hypocrisy among the atheists. Imagine the solar system. The sun, the moon, the earth, the Mars, Jupiter, so many planetary systems. How do they act the way they are operating? Right? They have their own orbit, they are spinning around their own axis, and they perfectly guide themselves through those pathways. And we say there is no designer. The precision of the solar system. The solar system itself is a perfect example of amazing order and design. The movement of planets around the sun in their distinct orbit is so precise that we can even set our watch against these movements. Earth is located at right distance from the sun. Had it been a little closer, life on Earth would not have been possible because of high temperature, and had the Earth been little away from the sun, life would not have been possible because of freezing temperature. How then can we deny the existence of a designer and assembler behind the universe? Everything in this universe is perfectly designed, isn't it? So imagine the solar system, the position of Earth and with respect to the sun. It has to be in such a way that the climate or temperature should be fitting to the earthly life. Earthly life will not be possible if the planet is closer to the sun, because then the temperature will be more. If a little away, then temperature will be freezing. So there is a design. Who designed it? We will take another example, the complex living being. We are, we have been telling 8.4 million species are there. Each species is very complicated. Every living body starts with a single cell. Like you started with one cell, half of your mother cell and half of your father cell fused. That single cell multiplies and gives rise to gigantic bodies like elephants, whales, humans, etc. Also to tiny insects and microbes. Every organ of our body is very intricate and more complex than a computer. If a computer cannot come about by some random event or chance factor, how can a living body, which is the perfect working assembly of complex organs, come by chance? Right? So, a single cell divides, and there are varieties of cells. I have already told about this, isn't it? Your nails are a different cell, your skin different cell, your bones different cell. From one cell this has come. So some original design footprint is there, and nature is following that footprint in such an accurate way. Just try to understand this. And we say there is no designer. Similarly, the human brain processes information at a speed that cannot be simulated by best supercomputer. The cognitive function of a human brain is far beyond the abilities of present-day supercomputer. We do not have a machine that can properly understand language. A small boy can learn to understand few languages, but no machine is capable of this. Similarly, the eye has the ability to discriminate millions of colors. The combination of three primary colors, red, green and yellow, can provide millions of color shades, and the eyes have the power to differentiate them. There must be a creator who has created all these wonderful things. And we say there is no designer. So, not only that a complete species, that is whether it is a human species, elephant species, very complicated, but also the individual parts, the eye, the brain, everything is so complex. Sometimes we are made to be confused thinking that human beings are very complex and small cellular organisms are less complex. Now let us talk about a cellular organism like E. coli bacterium, a classic case of perfect complex design. E. coli is a common flagellate bacterium. Flagellum is thin filament that rotates and helps the bacteria in moving. The scientists are astounded by the immense complexity of this simple structure of a common bacterium. Flagellum is driven by a reversible rotary motor located at its base. Just look at the figure. You will see that how in a nanometer scale a very complex design is present. It is powered by an ion flux. The motor is about 45 nanometer in diameter and is assembled from about 20 different kinds of parts. When the motor at its base of flagella rotates at a very high speed, it causes bacterium to swim in the water. Even a single cellular organism is so complex in its design. If you look at the research community, there are thousands of people doing PhDs to understand this nanomotor. If E. coli bacteria motor is so complex, what to speak of other living beings, from reptiles to birds to animals to human beings. So we saw that a single cellular organism, E. coli bacterium, that itself is so complex. This has a motor which is a nanomotor, very complex. We will take another example, self-restrained water bodies. Water must continuously flow to remain unpolluted. Good flow of water in rivers keeps it in pure condition. Similarly, the vast body that supplies water is the ocean. The moon is at a perfect distance from the earth, and it creates important ocean tides and movements so that ocean waters do not stagnate. This water is always in motion because of the moon's gravitational pull. But the pull is only so much that there are tides in it. Had it been a little more, it would have inundated the land. Thus the massive oceans are restrained from spilling over across the continents. What a perfect design, just think about it. The pull is there and the pull is sufficient to make the tides. Okay? In fact, on the full moon day, you go to a sea beach. We were just coming from Jagannath Puri, where we enjoyed nice sea bath, and these tides become very high on the full moon day. But these tides, how high it can become, it will not cross the land. Right? We will take another example, natural symbiotic living order. When you observe in nature, we see that there is harmonious symbiotic relationship between different living entities. There are microbes in the soil that eat the soil and make it porous. If we provide for their first growth, then they help us to make the land light and fertile. The plants in turn grow better when the soil becomes light and fertile naturally, as they can now consume the elements of soil better. Thus, we see that everything in the nature is designed perfectly to coexist. So, there is a symbiotic relationship among different living entities. In fact, once I was in a conference, and one of my colleagues asked, what is the necessity of 8.4 million different species? What is the necessity of these insects? So I retorted and said, what is the necessity of your life? you are only exploiting the nature. The cows eat grass, the grass has a value. And then cow produces milk, and that milk is given to you to drink, and you are very happy about it. But what is your contribution towards growth of the grass or towards the sustenance of the cows? So this is a little, I wanted to tell this one little jokingly, but let me narrate a small story here. The story is like this. I went to one organic farm, and the farm owner, Mr. DK, he actually handed me a big piece of soil and asked me, before he handed, he asked me what will be the weight, and I thought probably this is 3-4 kilo. And as soon as he handed over, I could feel it so light, right? It's 200-300 gram. And then he said this particular soil has almost 10 to the power 14 microbes, and that's why this soil is so light, because these microbes have made this soil porous. You must know the plants, they breathe, but they breathe through their roots. If the soil is porous, plants can breathe nicely and they can grow nicely. Okay? So there is a symbiotic relationship between the microbes, earthworm, and the plant. And those plants, when we take care, give us nice fruits, grains, right? So in the same farm, in another zone, there are other plants, right? And someone is actually sprinkling something. I asked, what is he sprinkling? And then Mr. DK said that he is sprinkling jaggery water. I said, why? Because jaggery water is sweet, and that attracts the bees, more pollination, more yield. So if the bees are so wonderful for the farmers. So like that, there is a symbiotic relationship among all living entities. We must learn to live with all others. We should not think only for humankind. Present modern day world only coins the word humankind, whereas Vedic literature emphasized on the word called praja. Praja means that which has taken birth. Anybody that has taken birth, that means all 8.4 million species must be maintained by the king. Another example is cows eat grass and give us milk. We drink milk, and if we take care of cows, a perfect symbiotic relationship is harnessed, a perfect design. Everything in nature inspires us because of the perfect design. When you observe the wonders of creation around us closely, then there is hardly a chance to miss the beauty and aesthetics of perfect design at all levels. In fact, nature has inspired us to make many artificial things, like the birds inspired us to make aeroplanes, isn't it? So similarly, the perfect design all around us is visible, but we never talk about the designer, right? And I have been talking about this again and again. There are two things. There is a creation and there is a creator. When we see the creation, we don't think about the creator. So that is a faulty vision. The right vision is seeing the creation, we should have the ability to see the creation, a creator. So this is just to, so who is that creator? That creator is God. So this is just to give you a little idea that God does exist through enumeration of the example of perfect design. So whether it's perfect design in the form of solar system, perfect design in the form of different living species, perfect design in the form of the symbiotic relationship among the living entities, everything that you see all around, there is a perfect design. I hope this makes sense to you, to recognize that there is a perfect designer, perfect creator, and because of whom everything is so nicely existing.